Hey there, I'm Jay Kapoor, and I don't want to be the next Michael Jordan. I only want to be Kobe Bryant.
And I'm Tim Katt, and while these young guys are playing checkers, I'm playing chess. Welcome to a special Kobe edition of the Partner Rundown. Well, Jay, anyone who followed Kobe in his post-playing career efforts is well aware of his entry into venture capital with the firm that he created, Bryant Stibel. Tell us more about what it was.
Yeah, Tim, so Bryant Stibel to me was kind of this professionalization of what we had already been seeing with athlete family offices. And so we had seen, athlete investors for many years, whether it was Roger Staubach or Magic Johnson, another Laker. But Kobe was really one of the first folks to take that platform that was his own money as an angel investor and turn it into a true fund with external capital. And in this case, the first fund, that $100 million fund that they did, was external capital from his partner, Jeff Stibel. So the other thing that was revolutionary that Kobe was doing was going and partnering with an experienced investor, somebody that he could rely on their expertise in the market as an entrepreneur, as an investor, and he could bring some of the access that he had to those deals. The last piece of it that I thought was really fascinating with Bryant Stibel is they were LA based. And this is back in 2013 when, it seems obvious today, Silicon Beach and all the technology platforms that are in LA. But back in 2013, there wasn't really a tech hub and a startup hub. And here was this $100 million fund built by the greatest Laker of all time that was investing in LA companies. So I think that was pretty unique for Bryant Stibel as well.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about access on our podcast, The Game Plan, as that's a lever athletes can pull and really use their name to get access to better deals. That seems obvious with Kobe, but what I love about it is instead of focusing on access to early stage deals, he leveraged it for access to later stage deals. So what did that mean? It meant that the risk threshold was maybe a little lower. It meant the capital need was greater, but that's why he went beyond his own capital, to your point, raised $100 million with his partner, Jeff Stibel, eventually got to $2 billion in assets under management. And that led to unbelievable wins with companies like Bodyarmor and Scopely. And he invested in other companies as well that some had sports ties like Players Tribune, but that wasn't the sole focus. Instead, it really was focused on what LA was great at, which included media, tech, and entertainment. And so even though Kobe's no longer with us, it's exciting to see Bryant Stibel continue to thrive.
So Tim, one of the most successful investments that Kobe Bryant made was his $6 million investment in the beverage company Bodyarmor. Tell us about that deal.
Well, like any good investment, it looks great now. But think back to 2013 when he first made that investment. It wasn't obvious for him. He had to make a cost-benefit analysis to give up on endorsement opportunities with Gatorade or Powerade, which was kind of the only way for an athlete to make money from a beverage partnership prior to this investment. But he also assessed where he was at in his career and understood, he was in that second phase, retirement was on the horizon, and he could take the risk of maybe missing out on some endorsement dollars as an opportunity for upside. This is no different than when he had been in a deep shoe deal with Adidas and halfway through his career, he went to Nike or he switched his numbers. So Kobe was constantly reinventing himself, and to make the move from endorser to equity holder is something that he was really an expert at. And unfortunately, I think is what we miss out the most on now that he's gone is what could he have done with his fund and other things from an equity standpoint that would have really set the tone for a player post-playing career.
Yeah, that's right. And I think one of the things that we have to remember is that he has now become the blueprint for the modern athlete to choose ownership over endorsement if that is available to them. And so you have to think about the fact that, he made $680 million from his playing career, according to the last estimate from Forbes. But his ownership stake, he owned 10% of Bodyarmor. He was the fourth largest shareholder, is worth $200 million at the time of his passing. And so I think what he's showing athletes is if you start investing in yourself and investing in your brand early and taking that shot, taking that investment risk versus, let's say, just getting a steady paycheck as an endorser, you're actually setting yourself up for long-term financial success as well. And we have seen that today with the top athletes like LeBron, for example, who is able to get endorsement on one hand, so he's got his deal from Coca-Cola or from Pepsi, but he's also choosing to forego a deal with McDonald's to become an investor and an equity holder in Blaze Pizza. Or, he's keeping his beverage deal on one hand, but he's switching on the other hand to get, his own tequila company started where he has ownership in that tequila brand. So I think Kobe really was a trailblazer in the idea of athletes and entertainers choosing ownership over endorsement.
Well, Jay, we obviously all know Kobe for his prolific basketball career, but not everyone knows that he actually won an Oscar. What does that Oscar mean for his legacy?
We hear from a lot of athletes, Tim, especially on the game plan, that they have had an incredible successful career on the court or on the field. And then when they try to get into a different endeavor, whether that is entrepreneurship, whether that is in getting into the media world, they're not taken seriously. And it's kind of frustrating because you say, look, I excelled at the highest level. I was in the top 1% of the top 1% in my sport. And you think I don't have the skills now to translate that into something new. And with Kobe, I think it was him proving that, hey, athletes shouldn't just shut up and dribble. If you have media aspirations, you take those media aspirations and you turn them into something that is meaningful to you. And so this was certainly meaningful to him because he had taken his retirement letter that he wrote in the Players Tribune, which he was also an investor in, and turned it into this beautiful 8-minute documentary that obviously was so beloved. And he really brought the toolkit that he had built from his success on the court into becoming a Oscar-winning filmmaker.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for people to write off this Oscar and say, oh, well, he won it because he was Kobe Bryant. But what was so clear is the time and effort he put into developing that storytelling craft. Kobe said, storytelling is at the epicenter of everything. It's how we learn about the past to inform our future. And for those of us who've watched Dear Basketball, I encourage all of our listeners to do so. You can see that he poured his heart into it and that there was a level of humility needed to be able to take on that creative endeavor. And not everybody has that in them. And it might seem silly to be sitting here and say, oh yeah, Kobe showed humility, but I don't think it's an easy task to open up your heart, to really pour yourself into the creative process and show the kind of output and dedication that led with Dear Basketball.
So Tim, here we sit on the 1-year anniversary of Kobe Bryant's untimely passing. What can we learn from his example?
I think the best thing you can take away from Kobe's example is really the process-oriented life. So we all know Kobe won multiple world championships, multiple MVPs, even an Oscar, but it was the process that got him there, and it was his ability to find joy in the journey in doing that. He was so obsessed with basketball and with improving, and he poured that into his drive every single day. And when you look at over 40 professional athlete guests we've had on the game plan, it's the same thing. It's almost always a dedication to the month, the week, the day, down to the hour of being focused on getting better. And Kobe did that not only in his career as a basketball player, but like I said, he won an Oscar for writing Dear Basketball. So if there's anything I'll take away from Kobe, it's focus on the process and find joy in the journey.
Yeah, when Kobe passed, Chris Bosh had this beautiful quote where he said, "You've set the example for excellence around the world." And that's really what Kobe Bryant was. And it's what that excellence was that he brought into everything that he did, whether it was on the court or whether it was off the court. And in doing so, what he was doing every single day was proving his doubters wrong. He never let them get to him. He just kept going in his direction because he knew that he was setting that level of excellence. And I will be honest, I was one of the first people who doubted that he was going to be able to succeed off the court. When he launched his $100 million venture fund, I wrote a blog post called VC Funds Are the New Steakhouses. And how wrong I was to think that somebody like Kobe could not apply those skill sets. And what a journey it's been over the last 5 years into doing this show now from where I was then. But I was so happy to be proven wrong. And it's actually why his passing was personally so affecting to me, because I feel like he was just getting started with that second act. He was just getting started as that example to other athletes that you are not just one thing, that you can do bigger things. And if you set a high level and high standard of excellence to do those things, you will prove your doubters wrong. So in that way, I think Kobe's example is an example to all of us.
Well, Jay, thanks for sharing your perspective, especially on this special Kobe edition of the Partner Rundown. I'll see you next time.
During that year, everybody kept coming up to me and saying, okay, you're going to have stages of grief when you retire. You're going to go into a state of depression when you retire. And those are all normal and all this other stuff. And I'm like, dude, I'm fine. And, you know, and then my competitiveness inside was like, no, I'm gonna do something in the next 20 years that is better than these last 20. You might not understand that. I'm doing that.